is Dorchevella. Bray. The next station is Bray. Schaffen and Varney, please mind the gap.
Elvis is dead, or at least Bray's Elvis, that's Alan Adamson, is no longer with us. He passed away just recently. Who remembers Elvis, Bray's Elvis?
I remember him very well, and he added a sense of colour and style to the town, in fairness to him. I think he eventually moved to Greystones because I didn't see him around for the last couple of years, but he seemed like a very nice person.
Always obliging for a photograph, and the 3 times or 4 times I've photographed him was at Greystones outside their Dart station, in the Bray station, the Dart station, and in Tara Street, and always he was ready for the pose, in the suit, and he brightened up the town.
Okay, well, he discovered his deep love for Elvis at aged 4 when his father and himself apparently watched the film GI Blues. So rest in peace, Alan, and welcome to Bray Talking Heads. So hello, it's Mark,
Pat,
Leah,
and welcome again. I suppose the hot topic at the moment in Bray is the traffic. Has anyone noticed the number of cars in gridlock on Bray Seafront recently?
Not just on Bray Seafront, but when they're going home, all along the Novara Avenue, all along the Florence Road, all along any of the roads that are leaving Bray, and on the way in as well. And during the week, the traffic is just as bad. Everybody I know that comes to Bray is like, oh, but then again, I don't drive. So I can be sanctimonious about this. So I don't know if that's the right word, but I can be sanctimonious about this and say, get out of your cars, guys. Take public transport. Walk.
Yeah, well, we posted photographs up on our last show about the traffic coming into Bray for the weekend, and the Strand Road, the Sea Point Road, all chock-a-block. Gridlock all the way, as cars, unsuspecting, most of them just drive into Bray expecting, like you did in the old days, to just park up somewhere and it's only you and you're not worried about anybody else, because the whole thing about car, the whole experience about a car is when they're advertised as this great thing that can bring you anywhere on your own in cities that have no people in them when they're advertised on television.
And imbue you with freedom.
They do.
And to a certain extent they do. I mean, I'm not anti-car. Well, I am, but I'm not completely anti-car. But I thought it was interesting. I actually got an email from somebody in Vancouver in Canada saying, what is going on Bray Beach in reference to that photo.
Yeah.
But, the Dart service into Bray is superb. The bus service into Bray is superb. Kids actually like taking the Dart and they like taking the bus.
The whole thing is it's not a movement. It's the way it is. People have to be moved out of their cars onto these alternative platforms, either on your 2 feet, on 2 wheels, or in a bus with 80 or 90 other people to get to places, okay? Now, what's come up in the meantime is the emergence again of the N11 M11 bus priority interim scheme, and what that is to get buses quicker through Bray, past Silver Bridge, past Junction 6, which is the Herbert Road, Junction 7, which is the Hollybrook last entrance into Bray, to Greystones, and onwards to Arklow, Wicklow, Wexford. And of course, us Brayites are up in arms because that has impositions for us, because we have 4 ways of getting out of the town. And also, cars from Delgany, from Greystones in the morning for commuter times have to get out of their places. And people in those lovely new houses down in Ashford that you see, like it's all lovely at the weekend, but come on that road during the week, that's chock-a-block as they all come up, bypass, try to get through Bray or past Bray. So it's all converging onto, pinch points.
The geography of the town as well is very difficult too. Like, let's face it, there's one bridge into the main part of the town. One bridge. One really old...
Narrow bridge.
Narrow bridge, exactly. Yeah. So that's problem number 1. Problem 2 is obviously the geography of the town being that Bray Head bookends the town and there's nowhere else to go except back around again. So I would never profess to be a town planner. I don't know anything about how to traffic manage things, but simplicity in terms of what's happening in the UK, and so many cities in the UK are one-way systems. And perhaps that's something like that is required. Now, I live in the town of Bray. I don't particularly want to have a one-way system, but if that helps alleviate the traffic, then that's fine.
I'm glad you mentioned planning, because there's so many new estates going up, and I'm delighted they are going up because people need somewhere to live. But how have they planned for that traffic to move?
Okay, well, here, I'll give you an example. Dell has just got permission, obviously. It's been flattened and ready to go. 178 apartments, 3 to 4 stories, 155 cars, 311 bicycles, and I think another 23 spots for the creche. Ballymore, down at the Dargle there, the old Bray Golf Club lands, permission been sought for 341 homes, 150 bed hotel. The cars, 532 spots, 1,000 bicycles, and then there's retail use. So that retail use has to be serviced. People have to come in and out of that via the bridge, I suppose. And already on that site, there's 234 homes, duplexes, apartments, whatever. So there is a committee set up in Daisy is the chair of it.
Anybody who doesn't know Daisy is Dermot O'Brien.
Dermot O'Brien, okay. Yeah. So, but what the executives say is, look, the committee can't overreach its remit, its meeting to discuss these things. But there's so many agencies involved in this. That new bus priority scheme, like it's the NTA, the TII, Transport for Ireland, Wicklow County Council, Rathdown County Council, being supervised project managed by Kildare County Council. So a lot of people in this. And I think
I think this one is, as they say, going to run and run, isn't it?
Could I just make one more comment, please? I think that both Wicklow County Council and Bray Municipal District should be looking at this from an economic point of view, because I think, you come out to Bray on a Sunday, you get stuck in traffic. You come out to Bray on a Sunday, you get stuck in traffic. And it goes on. People are eventually going to stop coming out to Bray. And so all the businesses around this area are going to lose, particularly the businesses on the seafront.
I absolutely agree with you, 100%, yeah. I mean, hopefully we can explore this a little bit further and maybe even talk to some of the people who are involved in the planning and, maybe have some input into their ideas and whatever. So this one is definitely going to run and run, so we'll stay with it, I guess. Now to home thoughts, and this is a feature on the pod where we're going to talk to people from Bray who now live overseas, and we'll hear their reflections on the town that they grew up in. We're going to start with someone who left Bray at the age of 22 when the toss of a coin in the Harbour Bar decided where he'd head off to for a year or so travelling. Well, Sean McBride is now in his 70th year and he's lived in Australia for the last 44 years. He was a young law student when he left and he's now a judge in Alice Springs, right in the centre of Australia. But Sean has never forgotten his roots and particularly where he grew up in Raheen Park with that lovely view over the town.
My mother, God rest her, used to sit in the front room on the phone. She insisted that the telephone, and it was a fixed landline, was in the front sitting room with the view out of the window overlooking the seafront. Later on, as I grew older and I was studying for exams and so forth, I'd often spend time in the quiet in that front room, admiring the view as a distraction from reading my syllabuses. It was lovely. It was a focal point. I now understand and appreciate more than I did then. What a beautiful, breathtaking view Bray Head and Raheen Park has of Bray generally.
I mean, it's funny, that's one of the things that we're discovering on this podcast series, that people really appreciate how unique, I suppose, Bray is. It's centred around the seafront and Bray Head, but that Bray Head is a very natural kind of, bookend, if you like, to the town, isn't it?
It is, and it's a weather shield as well in many ways. And when you look up from the promenade and from the seafront, it's very imposing. It's a magnificent headland. I remember regularly climbing up there when my uncle would come out from Dublin on a Sunday afternoon to meet the family and just share a few hours. We'd often just go off up Bray Head, and I remember him carrying me and my father, for that matter, on their shoulders when I got to the steep section, But it was an adventure living in Bray. You could go up Bray Head, you could go along the cliff walk. I spent many, many times walking and jogging up and down the seafront and loving it in all weathers and all conditions. It was good for my mental health as much as my physical health. And my sisters did the same. We used to often go out, and if we were troubled by anything or just frustrated or tired, we just go out, wrap up to suit the weather and walk the seafront. And it'll put a glow in your cheeks. The bit of exercise would clear the head. And on reflection, it was something that we did subconsciously for our own therapy. And I do reflect on that. And I think that was true for lots of people walking up and down the seafront.
And I suppose I have to ask the inevitable question. I presume that's something that you miss.
Greatly. And when I go home, Mark, first thing, after I get over the jet lag, I go for a walk down the seafront with my sister, my niece, or my nephew, and love it.
So tell me about your life growing up as a young lad. I know you mentioned Bray Head and the seafront and so on, but what haunts did you frequent?
Well, the seafront, Mark, as you'll know well, has a lot of pubs and clubs. And there were, growing up, a couple of notable establishments that the younger people frequented. The Harbour Bar, the Mississippi Rooms, as it was called then, where you'd have live entertainment on weekends. Bagatelle was a group that played there regularly. I used to see them. I didn't see them there, but I understand the Boomtown Rats played there on one or two occasions. They were popular haunts. I worked at some of the pubs on the seafront just to earn pocket money and to make ends meet, to make things a little bit less financially difficult for my parents. So I worked from working on the chairlift as a very small 9 or 10-year-old, because the manager of the chairlift and the Eagle's Nest lived across the road.
What was his name, by the way?
Coleman, Mr. Coleman. I can't remember it. I think it was Des Coleman. Yeah, I remember pushing out the chairlift from both the top and the bottom.
And I remember you mentioned to me as well that you worked in Dawson's Amusements and the Antler Hotel and the Esplanade Hotel. The Esplanade Hotel is still there. The other two establishments are gone. Dawson's is gone and the Antler is gone.
I know I've got fond memories working at Dawson's. Mrs. Leah and Dawsons. I got a summer job at the Ghost Train and on the dodging track, and I worked there for a number of seasons with a couple of my school friends. It was great pocket money. I think we got 10 shillings a week. And of course, Bray was a popular, and still is, but it was a popular tourist town for tourists from Northern Ireland. And you'd get them from England, especially Liverpool and Manchester area, regularly during the summer months. Sunday afternoons on the dodging track, they were 10 deep on the steps waiting to get on.
Right. I'm sure there were other financial advantages working in that environment where there was so much cash lolling around.
I'm sure there were. I'm sure there was. Certainly it was a cash economy then, wasn't it?
It certainly was. And speaking of cash and coins and so forth, it was the toss of a coin that decided your fate at 22 years of age in the Harbour Bar. Tell me that story, please.
Martha, and I know it sounds a little bit incredible, but I finished university and finished my articles training to be a lawyer in Dublin in 1978, 79. I wasn't happy because I hadn't left Ireland to travel and see a bit of the world. And back then it was a big deal to leave your homeland and travel overseas because there was a risk of not getting work. There was a risk of not succeeding and coming back without any money and having wasted perhaps a year or two of your time and miss out on job opportunities back home, which were scarce. So I made inquiries and found out that the only two countries that I could readily get a working holiday visa for that spoke English, because I didn't have any other language other than a little bit of Gaelic, which was no help to me in Australia or Canada. And I couldn't decide on which country. And a mate of mine that I went to uni with, he wanted to come with me, and we flipped a coin having a pint at the Harbour Bar. And it came down Australia. And within a few days, we went into the Australian consulate, as it was then, and we found out that we could get visas. Booked a ticket, a one-way ticket, got on the plane and ended up in Perth. And my first experience in Perth was sunshine, surf, beaches, and what I thought were very affluent and well-to-do young lads and girls, all with their own cars, surfboards on the roof, having a great old time. It was party central, something that I had not experienced or seen. Of course, unbeknownst to me, what I had landed in was the mining capital of Australia, where things were booming at the time. And,
it sounds like it's a million miles, literally and culturally and socially, if you like, from Bray and from Ireland.
Well, that's my point. Yeah, it was. And that's what I fell in love with.
I just want to run a crazy theory by you, right? So this is a Bray theory, and it's my theory, right? So as you grew up, as you've said, in Raheen Park, which of course is on the southern side of Bray, in my experience growing up, everyone I knew from the south side of the Putland Road was a bit mad, right? And I think that's because the air was a bit thinner up on Bray Head. I just wonder what your reaction to that is.
Oh dear. I think there were some characters up there, yeah, and the air was a bit rarefied. Not sure of Putland Road, Mark. I think
so
we could go up. We could go south of the Vivi, maybe. You know.
But anyway, just to finish up, I just wanted to I want you to expound on this a little bit for me. You said a lovely thing on your text to me when we first made contact about this interview, and although you left in 1980, you say that Bray has never left your heart.
I'm indebted to my town, the education I received, the friendships that I made, for my relative, and I use that word, relative success in Australia, in a country where I knew nobody, that took me in, embraced my effort, and gave me an opportunity.
So local boy made good there, Sean McBride, speaking with me from Alice Springs in Australia. Judge he is over there as well, so I presume he's called His Honour or something like that.
Amazing that he tossed a coin in the Harbour Bar. And it would have been Canada, the 51st state, or else.
Don't be saying that.
Australia.
But thinking that he was only going to go for 2 years, you know.
Yeah,
or
and
less,
now he's a judge there.
And now
I'd say his life is fascinating, wouldn't you?
Oh, I imagine so, yeah, absolutely.
No.
And one of the interesting things that he said, which isn't in the interview was like, 50 minutes long or something, but he did say that the Irish do well in Australia, I think because they're good communicators and they're gregarious or whatever, and that fits in with the Australian psyche as well, I guess.
A modern society in terms of like set up young, built well, planned well, whatever. I think it takes a lifetime to work out the differences of culture, heritage, etc. But for young people going over there, now the staying over there is expensive for young people, but I think the opportunities, the weather, the vibe, people say about the shops when you go into it, you know, they're nice. It's everything is nice about it. So opportunities, Leah, what would you think? Would you, if you were younger, would you be thinking of?
No. And the reason why, I'm sure Australia is absolutely wonderful, and I know loads and loads of people who have gone there, but they have spiders that jump. I don't mind spiders, in fairness, and when I've lots of house spiders. I have house spiders as big as mice, but they don't jump.
Yeah,
Right.
That's a fair point.
And the other thing that is happening there now is extreme weather, and I think that would be very difficult. Yeah. Australia's kind of a fascinating country to a large extent. I mean, if you look at the centre of Australia, it was used as if nobody existed, even though the Aboriginal people were living there. It was used for nuclear testing in the 50s by America. And so there's probably some residue there. I mean, the whole thing, I just can't do Australia. Can't even visit it.
Just getting back to Sean, though, the bravery of him, really, in some ways, because that wasn't a time when travel was an acceptable thing to show on your CV. So the longer he stayed away, the less chance perhaps he had of a career. He said that in the interview, coming back to Ireland and having, getting a secure job in law. Whereas nowadays it's perfectly acceptable to go and travel and spend a few years away and so on. But the other interesting thing that he said is what I was struck by was his really vivid memories of Bray. I mean, I know he comes back and stuff, but like his memories of his youth, and particularly the aerial chairlift, which we're going to talk about now, which is interesting.
So the chairlift, the famous chairlift, people might remember it from the John Hind photographs, postcard, where you'd see people coming on the lift down to Bray. For people who don't know, Mark is showing us a picture here. We probably put one up. It's it's kind of got the coated chrome colours in it. You can see on the left the pylon in yellow, and then the cables going down, and a couple on it, and she pointing out over Bray. I mean, I remember very, very vaguely as a child getting onto it, okay? But like as you got on, your tummy went, as you took off. You know,
I'll tell you what I remember about it. Right, I remember getting on it too. If you look really close, you can't see it in that photograph, but it literally was just a piece of metal chair.
It's like a garden chair.
Tiny little chain.
Yeah.
And that was it. Yeah. Like you weren't harnessed in
I
or anything
remember
like
that as well. No, yeah, and then you'd go up but it was a treat to go on it.
Yeah.
Absolute treat. Yeah, you didn't go on it every day of the year or anything like that.
People went up or went down, one or the other.
Yeah. And then you'd walk down the steps. But you remember you could have an ice cream up in the restaurant up there.
Yeah.
The
That's
cafe.
right. Yeah, the cafe at the top.
So it would be a real treat to take the chair lift, as we called it.
Bray was kind of exotic then, even more exotic than perhaps it is now, wasn't it? Though, like a chair lift is unbelievable, and the remains of it are still there. So if anyone wants to go for a walk up Bray Head, you can see some of the stanchions are actually still there, the old yellow stanchions.
Yeah. Okay, so this interview comes from about 20 years ago when I was doing interviews about Bray back in the day, okay, and this is Brendan Coleman, whose father was the manager of the chairlift. He worked for Red Island. Let's have a listen to Brendan.
Like I said, my father worked in Red Island for Eamon Quinn, so the division started there. So I'd say that's where the original division came from. I think that's where my father met my mother at a dance in Red Island. This would have been all part of the chairlift, the Eagle's Nest. It was all part of Quinn's business thing here. So there was a few caravans there. Campsite did very, very well, you know. And I have a little book there now that I can show you there that has, it's just an old book of the fathers, and he kept a list, he kept a little log, a daily log. Like there we are, the 24th of the 8th, 1952, it carried 2,679 passengers. There we are, the 15th of the 8th, 52, 1,295. You'll never see that again. So it had its peak. Well, the hours of operation were, on a day like today, it'd be 10 o'clock in the morning, and it could go till 11 o'clock at night. But then weather dictated a lot. They couldn't operate in high winds, especially if they were coming from the west. Then if you just had a bad day with bad weather, people didn't come and that sort of thing. They sort of more or less opened. They always had to go. Easter was the start. So with the good weather at a late Easter, that would be the start. You start to build up the momentum for the summer. Well, the last fair I can remember when I was around there was 2 and 6 up. $50 they call it in those days, and it was 1 and 6 down. I think that would have been the last, or about the last price I can remember. It would have been cheaper, but previous to that. The maintenance on the chairs was sort of it was almost an ongoing thing, because they were checked like every day. The father had a little routine, and all the chairs were numbered, and there was a tripping switch that would indicate if there was a problem or something like that. They were tested, and then every 2 or 3 years, I think it was 2 years, they get a new rope. And that used to be a 3-day job, putting the new rope on, and you'd have about 10 guys putting a half-mile splice in it and that sort of thing. That was after that it was painting and things like that, you know. We had 2 dogs. Rex was the dog's name, and it used to be a thing in the morning at 10 o'clock in the mornings there. The chairs would start at 10. There was always a few people, you know, got up early from their bed and breakfast, came up, and they'd be looking at the chairs. They'd say, "Oh God, I wouldn't go on that. Here, Rex." Used to put Rex onto the chair and push her out, and up she go, no bother. So the dog can do it, we can do it. Well, my father used to always say, looking down from the Eagle's Nest, if you could see grass in the seafront, Bray wasn't busy, you know. I remember him talking, and I think he was concerned about it. He could see it coming. When numbers are falling, that's a sure sign. Then you start looking for the reason for why are the numbers falling. And around the Northern Ireland troubles, as I said, the Northern Ireland troubles and the car ferry and the cheap holidays, all these things sort of added up a little bit, you know. I'd say it was the cheap holidays to Spain, and people just got attracted to going to Spain. Well, it's changed now. The type of tourist has changed now, I suppose. Where the tourist season, I suppose, in my childhood and what we're talking about here now, sort of peaked May, June, July, August and into September. There's always a few people floating around now. There's more people up the cross now on a daily basis now than any time of the year, you know. Probably Ryanair is helping a lot. People coming in for their long weekends, a dart ride out, you know. And you know that the dart is going to be there in 5-10 minutes. So there seems to be that sort of a tourist around there now.
That's lovely stuff there from Brendan Coleman there. And what a pity we don't have the chairlift anymore, really, in many ways.
Well, we had a lot of things.
As a novelty,
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. We had a lot of things in those days that I wish were back. For instance, the chairlifts. And do you remember the paddle boats? Oh my goodness. They were the lethal paddle boats that you could rent, right? And they were a great thing if you wanted to isolate, somebody. But in fairness, there was things then, but there's things in Bray now that we never had then. For instance, the County Wicklow Mermaid Arts Centre. I mean, there was no arts centre when we were growing up, and they do marvellous, absolutely marvellous stuff, not just in Bray and Greystones, but across the whole county and across every age group. With schools, with groups. They encourage art, they encourage artists. They're amazing. I was privileged to interview the new CEO, Aoife Demel, and here she is now.
Born and bred I am. I grew up in Charnwood, actually, behind Tesco, so most people would know me as Aoife Downs. And yeah, my family are all from Bray. The Downs is down Fatima Terrace, and my granny was Nurse Byrne on the Vivi Hill there,
right?
The local midwife.
I think
my family
she delivered quite a few babies.
She sure did. She sure did.
Over the years,
so it doesn't really get more Bray than that. And I just live off Main Street myself. So
do you?
Yeah.
Great. So tell me, what are your memories of Bray growing up?
My first memory when you just mentioned Bray growing up was the snow in the 80s and the plastic bags in the forest behind Charnwood and what we called German lands. Mm-hmm. So that's a memory from my childhood that comes straight into my head.
I know that you started the Yarn Festival here and you're very involved in storytelling, other storytelling associations.
I am.
Tell me how that happened. Was it a natural progression? Or were you influenced by somebody, or was it cultural? What?
So it was actually Nora Hickey, who was artistic director here at the time, who did the very first Yarn Bray's Festival of Story and Song, which was a few events that featured traditional storytelling. And I had come back from maternity leave at the time and spotted this and said, I think we should do that, but we should just do it around storytelling, oral storytelling. And from that, because I had experienced that in the west of Ireland, and from that grew this festival, the Yarn Storytelling Festival, which was originally a Bray festival, and we now have expanded, thanks to Wicklow Arts Office, right across County Wicklow. So, and as you know, I'm also chair of Storytellers of Ireland, so this is all part of a bigger love of storytelling that has developed over the past 15 years. So storytelling is really seeing a rebirth at the moment, particularly in the last 10 years. I think people are looking for that connection to each other around story. There's also, as you mentioned, much more diversity in our population, and storytelling is a very common thread throughout different cultures. So that's interesting. The Yarn Festival itself has run for 15 years now. As I mentioned, originally just in Bray, but expanded across the county. But we have started now with a monthly story circle upstairs in the town hall in Bray, which is on the first Wednesday of the month. That's called the Yarn Story Circle. And that came out of a request by audience members coming to the festival every November, that there was very little on the rest of the year for those interested in the traditional arts, and particularly in oral storytelling and folklore. Folklore is a big interest with people. So we started this very small group of us would gather, and we have tea and biscuits. Some months there could be 30, some months there could be 6 of us. And the way it works is we invite a professional storyteller who will tell to the floor for about half an hour. And then we open up to the circle if anybody wants to comment or question, or perhaps have a go at telling a story themselves. Could be a personal story as well. And we have tea and biscuits, and then we go back to the guest teller at the end.
That sounds absolutely lovely.
It's just a lovely sense of community, and you do hear a lot of local stories about Bray at that circle as well.
Well, I didn't know that existed. Well, that's one part of your job, but you're CEO and artistic director. Tell me about your plans.
Well, it's a huge privilege. As you know, I've worked here for 17 years in marketing and have programmed the Storytelling Festival. But our main reason for existing is to connect people. And you see, I love this word, connect. I love that, bringing people together across art forms and also across County Wicklow. So we're very conscious of that. So our plans for the next few years are to continue the work that we are doing in bringing as many high quality artistic events to people across the county of Wicklow, not just in the building here in Bray itself, and also to support, we have some fabulous artists living and working in County Wicklow, and to support them and the development of their work, and also in partnership with Wicklow Arts Office. So there's some great projects going on there at the moment.
You mentioned the cinema on a Monday night. I have found that it's fantastic because there's such a wide range of movies that are shown, and I'm not sure that the whole of Bray actually realises that there is cinema happening in Bray, and very high quality cinema happening in Bray.
There is. We have a full cinema programme of events. It happens absolutely every single Monday night. I'm not sure in the history of Mermaid if we'd had to cancel a Monday night ever, because it's, you know, you'd never say, I'll put on a theatre on a Monday night. Monday is cinema night in Bray. It's Art House Cinema, and if you have a look on our website, you can scroll just under film. But every single Monday there's cinema in Bray. If you're interested in a particular film, if you mention it at box office, when we're choosing the films, we do try to listen to what people are looking for as well. We also add a good mix in of, you know, maybe one French film, one, you know, from different countries around the world, but there's a really broad mix of film every single Monday.
Aoife Demel, incredibly impressed with what the Mermaid does. It's not just a Bray institution, it's a Wicklow institution, and my goodness, the energy of that woman.
Well, I was fascinated by the fact that they're full up. You know, she like that's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's great. Really good. So it's definitely grown over the years, hasn't it? It clearly has. And it's a success story.
It's creaking with success, because behind the scenes, what you don't see, as she said in the brochure, is all the work to do at local schools, nurturing artists. Artists come in, before they even show work, it could be going on for months, and then that the centre is not just based in Bray, it's all over Wicklow. It's reaching out to do the whole thing.
And just to say that there's a longer version of that interview available on our SoundCloud link, which we'll have in the show notes.
Yeah, and it's a charity, by the way. This the whole thing is a charity, the Mermaid Arts Centre. It's 40% funded by agencies like the Wicklow Arts Office and the Arts Council, and 60% has to be self-generated. You know, so even when you're buying a ticket, when I buy a ticket, you can add a little donation onto it to you know, beef up that little amount. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to go back in time again now, Pat, from way back when you were out in the streets again, were you? Yeah,
so I'm like Ellis Lowry painting people on the street or whatever, you know. Or,
God, you have notions of veracity.
notions above my station. But anyway, back in the day, I was doing voxpops on the seafront 20 odd years ago. These ones are from. Now, do you believe in fortune tellers, Leah?
No.
What star sign are you?
I'm a Taurian.
What star sign are you, Mar?
Leo.
I'm Pisces. We'll have to look them up to see that we all get on. But anyway...
I don't think so.
The fortune teller, do you remember the fortune teller on the seafront?
I do, I remember her, yeah.
Never went to her, but I remember her.
Yeah. Okay, so down beside the new sauna, there opposite the Boathouse Cafe, was Madam Lee. People queued up years ago because you hadn't got the internet, you hadn't got your phone, and you went in to get your fortune told. So I met this woman on the seafront, and she told me about the fortune teller. But first of all, she was remembering looking at, as she was looking then, at the Bray Head Hotel. It was a bit dishevelled, and it hadn't obviously gone through the transformation that we see now. And she was remembering coming out as a young woman, sleeping on the seafront, you know, after the dances in the Bray Head or elsewhere, but also getting a lovely tea. She never forgot a lovely tea as you went up the Bray Head walk. The shops, houses on the right, sold tea and lunches and coffee or whatever. And she never forgot that. So before the fortune teller, she starts by telling me about that.
The house there, that up on the hill there,
yes.
On the bottom.
Yes, yes.
I used to go in there and get a lovely dinner or a tea, and my God, it cost you very little. But she'd put up the table, loads of bread on the table, and a lovely tea for you, and make you feel great. I don't know whether she still owns it or not. Because she wouldn't remember me. I was only 18 at the time.
And what about over there was the fortune teller?
I went in one day to them and I was with this friend and he said, yeah, I'll pretend I'm with you. We wanted to fool her, you see. And he was holding my hand and it was the girl that was my friend, it was our boyfriend. And we went in and we said, we want to get our fortune told, please. And she kept looking at me and I was looking at him holding my hand and sit down, she said. Oh, yes. She said, I don't think that's your girlfriend. Oh, it is, he said. Oh, no, she said. No, he said, that's not your girlfriend. But I think that's your girlfriend there. And she was right. She said, you'll travel a lot. And you'll have 6 children, and you'll marry a soldier, and all that. And I didn't believe her at that time, but it was true.
And is that him there?
No.
Oh, no.
My husband died a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And you married a soldier?
No, I did. I married him when I was very young.
And you had 6 children?
And I had 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls. And I have travelled since.
That's
you just
lovely.
have to laugh.
Oh, that's
you?
lovely.
It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I wonder if she's still listening to us. She travelled afterwards, and then the guy that she was with, the man she was with, was a companion. In an extended part of that, she talked about like Bray being the end of the world as they came out from Dublin. It was the only place to go. It was like the Hollywood.
The end of the world. I'm not sure it was.
Yeah, it was the place to go.
But I remember, and I always had great admiration for the families that used to come out on the 45 bus with the kids and the sandwiches and all the rest of it and sit on the beach. And my goodness, those parents put so much effort into bringing their children to the seaside and giving them a great day.
Now, another bite of this vintage vox popping. This guy here I met remembers Bray in the 50s and 60s, and we're sitting opposite Dawsons at the time. Okay, so we're sitting opposite Dawsons, and he talks about Dawsons back in the day.
All Dublin would move out here for a Sunday and a Saturday because the trains came out here. It was convenient, you know. You see where the flags are above? There used to be chairs went up there, and then down in the valley on the left-hand side where the steps are across from that, there was 3 or 4 concrete swimming pools, and they used to dive in there, but they're all worn away now, as you see.
Yes.
Those houses you see there just above the Bray Head Hotel there, they were all small shops, and most of them, I believed at that time, that they were people that came out of Germany during the war, and they used to have all kinds of small shops selling those postcards and all that type of thing. And they used to sell candy floss and ice cream as well. And the slot machines were all along the whole front. The young lads from around the town, when the people come in on a Sunday, you see, they wouldn't be used to slot machines. And some of the young lads used to put paper up the spout of the slot machine, and the people that put in, and they didn't know they won. And they'd take down the paper and they'd get the few pennies or whatever above it. Oh yes, on a fine Sunday on the wall there opposite the Bray Head Hotel. All the nice girls from Dublin used to come out there. Now I'm talking about the early 50s. And they used to sit along that wall and they were admired and maybe would have eye contact, and they'd go off to Bray Head for the day. Oh yeah, oh, it was a very lively place, extremely lively place.
Sitting on the wall and then being brought up Bray Head for the day.
But I think that was even happening up to the 70s.
Are we back to necking again, are we?
Well, it looks like it. You know, it is a universal thing, right?
Yeah.
Wow, God.
Man meets woman and woman meets man.
Did you sit on that wall at all?
No, I never sat on that wall because I wasn't, didn't need to.
Well, that's it for this episode, so join us again next time. It's goodbye from me.
From me.
And it's goodbye from me.
You've been listening to Bray Talking Heads, stories from a seaside town. To contact the show, email braytalkingheads@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Blue Sky at Bray Talking Heads. Bray Talking Heads. History, stories, opinions and conversations. A podcast for Brayites everywhere.